Quick reminder that mall Santas deal with screaming kids and insane parents for minimum wage during the most stressful time of year. So if these stories make you grateful you're not wearing a fake beard in a hot mall, smash that subscribe button. Story 1. A kid punched me in the throat because I asked what he wanted for Christmas. He was maybe 7. His mum put him on my lap. I said, "Hi there, what's your name?" He stared at me. I said, "What would you like for Christmas?" He didn't answer. His mum said, "Tell Santa." He turned and punched me straight in the throat. Full wind up. I couldn't breathe. I started coughing. The kid jumped off my lap and ran. His mum chased him. My elf had to get me water. I was coughing for 10 minutes. When I recovered, the mum came back with the kid and asked if we could retake the photo. I said no. She said she already paid. I said her kid assaulted me. She said, "He's just excited." I told her to leave. She demanded a refund. My manager gave it to her just to make her go away. The kids smiled at me as they left. Story 2. A mother screamed at me for 20 minutes because her daughter cried on Santa's lap. The girl was terrified. She took one look at me and started wailing. Normal reaction for some kids. The mum forced her onto my lap anyway. The girl was hysterical. I told the mum this wasn't working and we should try again another day. The mum said, "We've been in line for an hour." I said, "I understand, but her daughter is clearly scared." The mum said she'll get over it. The photographer snapped a few photos of this screaming child on my lap. Tears, snot, the whole thing. After we were done, the mum looked at the photos and lost it. She said they were unusable. I said her daughter was crying the entire time. She said I should have made her stop. I asked how. She said, "You're Santa. Kids love Santa." I said, "Not this one." She demanded free photos. My manager said no. She knocked over our decorative present display on her way out. Story 3. A dad tried to fight me because I told his son Santa doesn't bring electronics. Company policy. We're supposed to say Santa brings toys and clothes, not phones or game systems. The kid asked for a PlayStation 5. I said, "That's a pretty big gift. Maybe Santa will surprise you." The dad interrupted and said, "Tell him yes." I said I can't promise specific gifts. The dad said, "He's been good all year." I said, "I'm sure he has." The dad leaned in close and said, "Tell him yes." I said Santa will do his best. The kid seemed fine with that. The dad wasn't. After the photo, he came back and got in my face. He said I ruined his son's Christmas. I said I didn't promise anything I can't deliver. He said, "You're supposed to make kids happy." I said I'm doing my job. He shoved me. My elf called security. He was escorted out yelling about how Santa is fake anyway. Great lesson for his kid. Story 4. A mother brought her kid back 3 times in one day trying to get the perfect photo. First visit, the kid wouldn't smile. Second visit, an hour later, the kid smiled but blinked. Third visit, 2 hours after that, she wanted a different pose. My elf told her she had to get back in line each time. She did, waited in line 3 separate times. The third time I recognized her immediately. I said, "Back again?" She said the other photos weren't good enough for her Christmas card. I asked what she wanted. She gave me specific instructions, told her kid exactly how to sit, where to put his hands, how to angle his face. The kid looked miserable. She made us take 15 shots. 15. The line behind her was getting angry. Parents were yelling. My manager finally came over and told her this was the last photo. She argued. My manager said leave or we're calling security. She took her photos and left. Never came back. Thank God. Story 5. A kid told me his parents were getting divorced and asked if I could stop it. He was maybe 6. Sweet kid. Sat on my lap and immediately said, "Santa, my parents fight all the time. I wasn't prepared for this." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." He said, "Can you make them stop?" I didn't know what to say. His mum was standing right there taking pictures. She couldn't hear him. He said, For Christmas, I just want them to be happy. My heart broke. I told him Santa can't fix everything, but I hope things got better. He started crying. His mum rushed over asking what happened. I said he got emotional. She took him away. I sat there for a minute just processing. My elf asked if I was okay. I wasn't. That was the worst part of the job. Not the hitting or the screaming. The sad kids. Story 6. I had twins who fought on my lap. They were about 5. Their mum put both of them up there at once. They immediately started shoving each other. One said, "I want to sit closer to Santa." The other said, "No, I do." They started slapping each other. I tried to separate them. One of them elbowed me in the face, hit my nose. My eyes watered. The mum was yelling at them to stop. They didn't. One pushed the other completely off my lap. The kid hit the floor hard and started screaming. The mum picked him up. He was fine but crying. She yelled at the other twin. That twin started crying too. The photographer got 0 usable shots. The mum demanded a refund because her kids were fighting. My manager explained that wasn't our fault. She said we should have controlled them. My manager said we're not babysitters. She left furious, dragging both screaming kids behind her. Story 7. A kid asked me why I smelled like cigarettes. I don't smoke. The previous Santa did. He'd quit 2 days before and I took over. Apparently the suit wasn't washed. The kid sat down, sniffed, and said, "You smell like my grandpa." I said, "Oh yeah?" He said, "Yeah. He smokes and it's gross." His dad laughed. The kid said, "Does Santa smoke?" I said, "No." He said, "Then why do you smell like smoke?" I had no good answer. His dad said, "Maybe the elves smoke." The kid thought about this seriously and said, "That's bad for them." After that photo, I told my manager the suit smelled. She said, "Deal with it. They just washed it last month." I bought Febreze and sprayed myself down between every kid. Still got comments. One mum asked if I'd been near a campfire. Close enough. Story 8. A girl asked for her dead dog back. She was maybe 8. Sat on my lap and said very seriously, "My dog died. Can you bring him back?" I froze. Her mum was crying behind the camera. I said, "I'm so sorry about your dog." She said, "But you're magic." I said, "I can't bring back pets who've passed away." She said, "Why not?" I explained as gently as I could that when pets go to heaven, they stay there and they're happy. She said, "But I'm not happy." I told her I knew it was hard. She asked if Santa could bring her a new dog. I said that's something to talk to her parents about. She looked at her mum. Her mum shook her head no. The girl started crying. I felt horrible. The photo shows her sobbing on my lap while I looked devastated. Her mum still bought it. Story 9. I had a dad tell his kid that if he wasn't good, Santa would take back all his presents. The kid was misbehaving in line, running around, hitting other kids. The dad grabbed him and said, "If you don't behave, I'm telling Santa to skip our house." The kid didn't care. When they got to me, the dad said, "Tell him." I said, "Tell him what?" The dad said, "Tell him bad kids don't get presents. Company policy is, we don't threaten kids. We're supposed to be encouraging." I said, "Santa likes it when kids try their best to be good." The dad said, "No, tell him he's getting nothing." I looked at this little kid. He looked scared. I said, "Everyone makes mistakes. Santa knows that." The dad got mad. He said I was undermining him. I said I'm just doing my job. He took his kid and left without a photo. Called my manager later to complain. My manager backed me up. Story 10. A kid pulled my beard off mid-photo. Just yanked it. The elastic snapped and the whole thing came off. He held it up like a trophy. Kids in line saw. They started screaming. One yelled, "Santa's fake!" Parents were horrified. I grabbed the beard and tried to put it back on, but the elastic was broken. I had to hold it to my face with one hand. My manager rushed over with backup beard. I went to the back and switched. When I came back out, half the kids in line were crying. Their parents were explaining that I was Santa's helper, not the real Santa. Some parents left. One dad told his kid, "See, I told you." That kid looked devastated. I felt awful. The kid who pulled my beard thought it was hilarious. His dad gave him a high five. I wanted to quit right there. Story 11. A mother accused me of being drunk because I smelled like hand sanitizer. We had to sanitize between every kid. Company policy during flu season. I'd just done it and my hands reeked of that alcohol smell. The mum put her kid on my lap, leaned in, and said, "Have you been drinking?" I said no. She said, "You smell like alcohol." I showed her the sanitizer bottle. She said, "That's what they all say." I asked my elf to confirm. My elf said, "He's been using sanitizer all day." The mum didn't believe us. She took her kid off my lap and said she was reporting me. I told her to go ahead. She went to my manager. My manager showed her the sanitizer policy and the giant bottle we keep visible. The mum still wasn't convinced. She took her kid and left. Posted on Facebook that the mall has a drunk Santa. My manager had to respond with a statement. People are insane. Story 12. A kid bit me. Hard. Drew blood. He was maybe 6. Seemed fine at first. Sat on my lap. I asked what he wanted for Christmas. He said a dinosaur. I said that sounds great. Then out of nowhere he turned and bit my arm. Right through the suit. I yelled. He let go and smiled. His parents were mortified. His dad grabbed him and said, "Why did you do that?" The kid said, "I wanted to see if Santa was real." His logic was that if I bled, I was real. I was bleeding. Through the suit. My elf got first aid. The parents apologized over and over. They offered to pay for anything. I said, "Just keep him away from me." The dad said their son has behavioral issues. I said he needs supervision then. They left. I had to get a tetanus shot later because you can't be too careful with human bites. I still have the scar. Story 13. A girl asked me if her parents were lying about Santa. She was maybe 9, old enough to be skeptical. She sat on my lap and said, "Are you the real Santa?" I said, "What do you think?" She said, "I think my parents are lying." I asked why she thought that. She said, "Because my friend said Santa isn't real and their parents admitted it." I gave her the standard line about Santa being real as long as you believe. She said, "That's not an answer." This kid was sharp. She said, "Just tell me the truth." I looked at her mum. Her mum was shaking her head frantically. I said, "Santa is the spirit of Christmas." The girl said, "So you're not real?" I said, "I'm real. I'm sitting right here." She said, "But you're not magic." I had no comeback. She got off my lap and told her mum, I knew it. Her mum looked crushed. The girl didn't seem upset though. She just wanted confirmation. Hardest conversation I had all season. Story 14. I had a kid throw up on me. Right on my lap. No warning. He looked fine. Sat down. I asked what he wanted for Christmas. He opened his mouth to answer and vomited everywhere. On me. On himself. On the chair. Chunks everywhere. The smell hit immediately. Parents in line started gagging. The photographer dropped her camera. My elf ran to get paper towels. The kid's mum was apologizing and crying. The kid was crying. I was trying not to throw up myself. We had to shut down the Santa station for an hour to clean. I went home and showered 3 times. The suit had to be professionally cleaned. Cost the mall $200. I didn't get hazard pay. The kid's mum sent a gift card to the mall as an apology. $25 to Sparrow. Thanks. Story 15. A dad offered me $50 to tell his kid he wasn't getting presents. He pulled me aside before the photo and said, "My son's been a nightmare this year. Can you scare him straight?" I said that's not really what we do. He pulled out cash. He said, $50. Just tell him he's on the naughty list. I said, we don't tell kids they're on the naughty list. He said, 100 then. I told him no amount of money would make me do that. He got annoyed. When his kid sat on my lap, the dad stood behind the photographer and mouthed, "Tell him." I ignored him. I asked the kid what he wanted. The kid said a bike. I said that sounds great. The dad interrupted and said, what about his behavior? I said every kid makes mistakes. The dad said, he punched his teacher. I looked at the kid. The kid looked down. I said Santa appreciates when kids learn from their mistakes. The dad was furious. After the photo, he demanded his money back for the photo package. My manager said no refunds. Story 16. A kid asked me why Santa was black last year and white this year. Good question. The mall rotates Santas. Last year, they had a black Santa. This year, they hired me. I'm white. This kid remembered. He sat on my lap and said, you look different. I said, oh yeah? He said, last year you were brown. I didn't know what to say. His mum looked embarrassed. I said, Santa has helpers all over the world. The kid said, so you're not the real Santa? I said, I'm one of Santa's helpers. He said, where's the real one? I said, at the North Pole. He seemed satisfied with that. His mum mouthed thank you to me. After they left, my elf said that was smooth. I said I made it up on the spot. The mall should have a better answer prepared for that question because it comes up more than you'd think. Story 17. My last day as Santa, a kid asked for something I actually could give him. He was maybe 7, sat on my lap and said, I don't want toys. I said, oh, what do you want? He said, I want my dad to come home from the hospital. I asked if his dad was sick. He nodded. His mum was crying. I asked what his dad's name was. He told me. I said I'd keep his dad in my thoughts. The kid said, can you visit him? I said I'd try. After the photo, the mum thanked me. She said her husband had cancer, and it meant a lot that I didn't brush off their kid's wish. I gave her my real name and number and told her to let me know what hospital. 2 days later, I visited in my regular clothes, brought the kid a small present. His dad was awake and they were so grateful. The dad beat cancer. They sent me a Christmas card that year. Only good memory from that job. Alright, that's it for Mall Santa Nightmares. If you've ever worked as Santa and survived the holiday season, you deserve way more than minimum wage. Make sure you're subscribed for more, and I'll see you in the next one.